Welcome everybody to the PinstripeChronicles podcast. I am Tats. I'm here with Donald and Rob, and Manfred gave one of his, very popular public speeches and interviews yesterday. And the one thing that, the easy one to get out of the way of his talking points is the universal DH. We all knew it was coming. We all wanted it to have come. And then there are people that are like, there are still people that are shocked that we have a universal DH and that the pitchers will no longer be hitting. And I think this is only that can't hurt the game. Is as teams are starting to get younger, as he was starting to emphasize, as teams try to get younger, you leave out room and jobs for the veteran players that still have something to offer, just might not have the agility on the field. And that's going to keep careers going while still making room on the field for younger talent. So it really is a win-win for the clubs, the veteran players, and the young players starting to come up. Do you think that's a fair statement?
Yeah. Look, the only team that should want a pitcher hitting right now is the Angels. There's no other team in baseball that should want their pitchers going up to hit. I mean, maybe Arizona in a pinch if they need Bumgarner, but that's it. No one needs to see. I'll use the Yankees as an example. No one wants to watch Garrett Cole up to bat in an interleague game. Who wants to see that? You'd rather see the full lineup. People want offense. They don't want to see what is always considered to be an easy out. Because when a pitcher gets a hit, you're like, how did you give up a hit to the pitcher? And it's funny for a couple of minutes, and then you're like, aha, and then you go on with the game. No one cares about it, really. So the people that are mad about it are the baseball purists or whatever, the old school, we got to keep the integrity. But in actuality, it was always stupid to have each league with that being the different rules. Like only in the National League and with their ballparks will the pitchers hit. It never made sense to begin with. So I mean, I know it was like that for a while, and then they had the DH come in, but it was only for one league. It was just a weird rule from the get-go, and it's about damn time that we get it. It's been overdue.
Yeah, it's about time. Just think back to when Chien-Ming Wang got hurt. It ruined his career running the base paths. Pitchers aren't meant to be doing that. They need to be focused on their expertise, which is pitching, and putting them in harm's way, whether it's running the bases or facing up to 100-mile-an-hour fastball going straight at them. You don't really want to put them in harm's way. Your arms are precious. So, it's devastating what happened to Chien-Ming Wang, not just as a Yankee fan, obviously, because he was our ace at the time, but himself, his career was never the same again after he hurt his hamstring running the bases. So it's only good for A, players' health, and B, the game. I mean, as you say, Rob, no one wants to see pitchers go up at bat unless it's Ohtani. But Ohtani's an outlier. That just doesn't happen.
He's the exception to the rule.
Exactly. So he's going to be the DH and stuff. I'm still not quite sure how they're going to work around that because remember when the Yankees faced him and the Yankees actually hit him pretty hard. What happens when you need to take him out the game? You know what I mean? That is a question that I'm not quite sure how sustainable that is. But back to the original point, you want great hitters, and also it helps us because we've got a whole team of DHs. So if we can start shedding them to the National League, then that's awesome. So Luke Voigt now, I think that's the next question I want to ask you guys is what happens with Luke Voigt? Because that means that there's now another half of baseball now, which would potentially need a Luke Voigt.
That actually Luke Voigt was, one of those that we had talked about is going to benefit from a universal DH. And, because it's going to give more opportunity for him to find a place to go where he could even, where he could still contribute and could be, that bench player, first baseman, at some point. So I think that having a universal DH is going to be, that's music to Cashman's ears because it just gives him, more leverage and
More leverage,
more
yeah.
opportunity to get things moving. Because if you're only trying, if you're limiting yourself to half the league with the trade, you really, you're not helping yourself. Now you got 15 new teams that are looking for that pop in the lineup that they could just rely on just for that pop in the lineup, and that's where Luke Voigt comes in.
Yeah, I mean, he was always probably a trade candidate this offseason anyway, since they mentioned first base as a position of need.
Mm-hmm.
So, and considering they don't want to use Stanton as an outfielder every day, that pretty much takes Voigt out of the equation. So whether they bring in Rizzo or Freeman or whoever at first base, Voigt's always kind of been on the block, and it's just now that there are 15 other teams that could use first baseman / DH, it opens up a ton of opportunities. Maybe Milwaukee, maybe even a team like Chicago, because they're not necessarily rebuilding, because they made some interesting moves this offseason. So there are teams that can use that bat. He still has a great bat when healthy. That's the biggest question. He just needs to stay on the field. So that's where the DH comes into play. You haven't played
also, hey, what about Gary Sanchez? He could now be a trade candidate, because now teams who are scared of his defense that maybe wouldn't want to trade to him before now have the DH option, because I think he'd be a very suitable DH, and there's not really any room for him to be a DH for the Yankees, because that's pretty much blocked up with Stanton. So do you think that's a possibility?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think anybody's off the table at this point if they have, a solid bat. The only question, as much as we love Gary behind the plate, giving up a catcher is a hard position to fill. So it's who's coming to take that place? You're going to have Higashioka as your everyday catcher. We've seen that's not always that's not the best way to go. So you kind of with Gary, I think that one's going to be a harder move.
Yeah, catcher is interesting because you don't have a plan C, I guess, for him. Because your plan B is okay. Well, you start Higashioka, but we know he's kind of. I think he's a little overrated defensively because Sanchez has been so bad. Higashioka just makes him look so. Higashioka looks so good compared to Sanchez. I don't think he's as good as people think. He's good, but not like amazing. You don't really have another catcher though. You don't have another catcher, so you kind of have to keep Sanchez, and just in case there's a veteran on the market that they go after. Is Maldonado still available? I'm not sure. There's still some names once we do get business back rolling. So maybe I don't know if they want to though at this point, because they probably would have never have tendered him a contract if they weren't planning on bringing him back. That's a decent amount of money team are going to have to eat for a 1-year DH. So I don't know if anyone's going to be rushing to get Gary Sanchez.
Yeah.
Oh, no one's rushing to get Gary Sanchez. The only person that would rush to get Gary Sanchez is, in fact, Brian Cashman. I think we've got him for another year. As you say, there's not a whole bunch of options for catcher. I would love to move on from him. I will never forgive him for that play against the Mets. He should have been fired just for that. Should have got rid of him right on the spot. Released him right then and there after that play.
Yeah, no, I know. And Chris Vitale, cycled that play for on Twitter, and I'm like, what did we do wrong that you have to put that out there? I don't want to see that ever again. That was just terrible. But we were talking also about making room for the younger players, and the other thing that Manfred did that he announced is that there's going to be now a better pool of money for the younger players. So it'll give them more money to shell out to the players in arbitration, and more of the draft pool and things like that. Did any of that interest you guys to say, this is something that is going to maybe help get the youth more, make them want to stay in the game if there's more money to be had.
They don't pay the young guys enough, and they never did as it is. So I mean, it's another thing like the universal DH. It's a long time coming. Like why is it that NBA and NFL rookies, they come in and they're immediately paid, and baseball players have to wait 10 years sometimes to get that good paycheck? It's just not fair to them. So,
Rob, could you move Gary Sanchez from the screen? It looks like Chucky. He looks like Chucky with that thing. Get rid of him. I can't look at him. He's just staring at me.
he's back.
I have to put up with him for an entire year. In fact, I'm going to put up with him
while
every year.
Since old friend Gary, I haven't brought the bobblehead out for a while, and you wanted to make
it's been
it
lovely. It's nice not having to see Gary Sanchez's face. Now I have to look at him staring at me.
Don't listen to
holding
him,
a
Gary.
bat.
He doesn't know what he's talking about, Gary. The meanness is back. Anyway, I'll move him first.
Thank you.
I think it's good. It's good for the younger players. There you go. Donald, your point.
Yeah. Well, because what Manfred said, we've moved forward. We've moved toward the players on key areas in an effort to address their concerns. Under our proposal on the table, every single pre-arbitration player would be better off under the new previous agreement. Estimated an increase in minimum salaries and pre-arbitration bonus pool. Players would see an increase in the hundreds of millions of dollars over the term of a new CBA under MLB's latest proposals. And
we got there. All right, bro. That's a lot of Manfred. Sum it up for me.
It's the younger players, the minimum wages, the minimum salaries are going to go up in baseball. There's going to be, they're going to put more money into arbitration numbers. So you're not going to, so players aren't going to be waiting until their late 20s, early 30s till they get their first contract, so they can maybe make some money for themselves. They're going to be earning that money a little bit more in their earlier years, which is what the Players Association was asking for. That was one of their primary goals in negotiations. So MLB's, Manfred's like, okay, let's increase the money that everybody's making, because it's not like the owners are losing money. They're making money hand over fist with owning these teams. It's about time that the young talent that people want to see is going to get a piece of
it. Yeah, pay your employees / players, whatever you want to call them, and people will respect you a little bit more. Right now, there's no respect on the owner's side. Everyone's taking the player's side because they had that meeting where there was a ton of unity, as Garrett Cole put it, and they're ready to get a deal done. Well, prove it to me, please.
That's get the thing. Done. I'm not actually convinced they're going to negotiate in good faith. I mean, I think the owners.
Haven't seen that yet.
I have a real feeling the owners are going to propose this to them, and they're going to go, okay, well, this is movement on our side. Let's see if we can push this further. And then we'll go back to stalemate, because that's how they've negotiated for years. It's unbelievable that the narrative is all that it's the owner's fault. It isn't. This is a 50-50 thing as far as I'm concerned. Maybe 60-40 in terms of the owners, but the players' union have to be just as culpable. And I also believe that the media don't do nearly enough to pressure Manfred. Manfred is obviously being a disaster for the game. He's the worst commissioner probably in the history of sports. And for some reason, because of his power and his leverage and his ability to fire really good journalists just for being critical of him in the MLB network, that you have a feeling that the journalists are terrified to go after him. And so he's been getting away with semi-murder for years now, and so now he's coming out with this statement, and it's movement in the right direction. No one's denying that it's movement in the right direction. It remains to be seen whether the players' union aren't going to just look at it and go, well, he's given us what we want. Let's see if we could push this further and further. and then the owners will be annoyed, and here we go again. So it's intrinsic on how the players union respond to this, players association respond to this. Let's see how they respond to this. If they respond to this in a positive way, going, okay, well, this is progress, let's try and make a deal, then that will be great. But it'll also be the first time that's happened in years. So I'm sorry, whatever Manfred said is fine. And whatever the Players Association say, it's lip service as far as I'm concerned. I think that a lot of this is actually just down to Manfred. They do not want to negotiate with him, so they want to make his life as miserable as possible. And I think that's why they basically been trading negotiations for years now. So let's see. The ball's in your court now, Players Association.
Well, that's exactly it. And as much as we get on Manfred, right, rightfully so, this is a fair deal. This is a good deal for the players, because if Manfred's making this announcement, that means the owners that he works for are already behind it. So there's no reason why this should be getting kicked back, saying, we want, it's still not enough. Well, what is enough? What is enough? Because the other thing that was decided on, the third point I wanted to bring up, is with the draft lottery, the draft pool for the teams. Manfred noted that many of the league's proposals have been in direct response to the players' concerns, specifically alleged service time manipulation. The league has also proposed an NBA-style draft lottery to address concerns of alleged tanking. And I think that right there says a lot, that, the owners, I think, are starting to hear all the complaining about, why are teams, these owners making, millions and billions of dollars, and they're not putting the money into their team. So this now gives the owners are saying, all right, if you guys are working your asses off for us, it's about time that we give you your due and compensate you properly. And teams that are purposely, like, when you get a team like the Pirates, that is pretty much a major league, shopping center for other teams, this might give them a little incentive to, maybe invest in their talent and give their fans something to hope for, that they're going to remain competitive.
Will it though? I mean, it just stops tanking. I don't think I don't think if that really necessarily pressures them to spend.
Yeah, it's more of you're not guaranteed the top pick,
Yeah.
You still have that in football where teams are clearly, losing for that first pick. And then basketball, I think hockey has it as well, but they do it right. So you can't guarantee yourself that top pick. How many times have we seen the team with the most losses not get the top pick, so that's why
it's also so pointless in baseball, because it doesn't matter who you draft. You don't know what's going to happen in 5 to 7 years time.
Yeah.
That's when you generally tend to see them come to the majors at all. And you still do, even if they are fantastic in the minors and they make it to the majors, there's no guarantees they're going to be fantastic in the majors. That's why this whole idea of tanking in baseball is so ridiculous. I know there's instances where the number one pick has been fantastic, but a lot of the time you can find the incredible talent in the middle rounds that turn out to be Hall of Famers. So
it's like 70 rounds anyway, so maybe they need to
700 rounds exactly. What are we doing here? What are we tanking for? What are we tanking for?
It's hard to tank in baseball unless your team is just really, really, like the Pirates are really, really bad, and that one play last year against the Cubs where like they just didn't tag first base and they threw home and like 2 runs scored on the play, whatever it was. Yeah. So, but it's hard. Baseball is so random. Like you can win a game that you're trying to lose because you're like, I don't know, someone dropped the ball or.
Yeah. The Yankees won 90 of them last year.
It's such a random sport. It's hard to tank in a 162 game season.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the best thing in the world. I mean, it's something, I guess. If the players wanted it, then fine, give it to them. But going back to like the whole negotiating in good faith thing, we'll see. Like, I think Donald's right. It's lip service. Everything Manfred said yesterday and what the players are saying, Judge was saying yesterday, like, we're all ready. It was a good meeting, but good, great, happy for you guys. Prove it. Because if they have a meeting tomorrow and they say, still not good enough, then and you're all just the villains, just like Manfred. So prove it to me. Get it done tomorrow. No more waiting. Spring training we should be talking about pitchers and catchers right now. Instead, we're still talking about a freaking lockout. It's absurd.
It is absurd. Good word.
Yeah, we should be doing preview shows of, the AAA and AA pitchers that, who's going to, move up the ranks, who's going to fall under the ranks, that's what we should be talking about right now.
I don't think there's any reason
The development of Austin Wells, and what that means for Gary going into the next season, and until that starts, there's no point in worrying about what could be. Let's just worry. We have to focus now on the now, and let's just get this deal done, and let's get pitches and catches going, and let's actually get a sense that we're actually going to have baseball.
Well, there was one thing yesterday. I think it was yesterday on Talking Yanks. They had Michael Kay on, and he made actually a really good point. He said there's going to be this 2-week period in baseball where they take over the headlines because of how many players that are still left that are going to be signing and who's getting traded and blah, blah, blah. So it's going to be good for the sport once they end this lockout, because people are going to stop talking about the fact that there was a lockout and now Correa signed this and with this team and Story's going here and this player got traded. It's going to be absolute chaos until spring training starts, and it's just going to be baseball everywhere, because football is going to be over. Basketball is heading toward its all-star break. This is the perfect time if you're going to end the lockout and get the offseason back on right before spring training. This would be the time, like right on Monday. Just announce it Monday, right after the Super Bowl. Like, there you go.
Yeah.
The other thing, the final point is the expanded playoffs. Are we happy about the expanded playoffs? Is it watering it down, or is it just giving more teams a chance to, a window to remain competitive, because there is that chance that you can get, because it's one of those, just get into the playoffs and then see what happens.
What is the proposal? Like, is it just one more team, or is it like what it was in 2020? Because if it's that again,
they didn't give the specifics, so I'm going to assume that they're looking to do it like they did in 2020.
Yeah, that was terrible.
That was terrible.
Terrible.
We had like 4 or 5 teams that should not. Us, Houston,
under 500.
Houston, under 500 teams making the playoffs is ridiculous. It cannot happen.
That was
I mean,
terrible.
it depends on how they do it. What do they have now? Is it? I keep forgetting how many teams it is now. Is it 6 or is it 7?
It's 6.
It's 6. I think that's enough, right? Because you're almost at half. You're almost at half the freaking league at that point. If you add another team, that's basically half the league is making the playoffs.
I think it would water it down significantly, man. And the thing is, like, there's a lot of bad baseball out there. So why would you want to watch the playoffs with teams with a couple of teams that are just not very good?
No, it's 5. It's 5, right? 3
I'd rather the playoffs be elite teams that are very good.
Yeah,
and there's a reason to watch. If you start adding all these extra teams that aren't very good, it just kind of waters down the.
No, I like the format they have now. It works. They don't need to expand it. The playoffs now, they had the wild card where the 2 teams, they were playing a best of 3. And then they made it the 1-game playoff to put more emphasis on the regular season and winning your division. and it's been working for years. And it hasn't always benefited the Yankees, so it's not like it's a biased thing.
No,
because
not benefited us at all.
No, it's not. But it's still then handle your business in the regular season, and the playoffs will be a little easier for you. You know, you won't have to worry about one game. You'll have the home field advantage. You know, there are so many factors that go into that. Don't water it down anymore, because the competition is already good. You don't need to lessen it.
Yeah, I mean, right now you have 5. Because you have the 3 division winners, and then you have the 2 wild card
teams.
Yeah.
So if you add one more, I don't know how that works. Like, because you can't have 3 wild card teams unless you have like a 1-game playoff, and then you have a 3-game series between that's just too much. Adding that extra team, you're gonna have to add like 2 more teams to make it work, where everyone's in a series, and then just have like a bracket style, and it just becomes watered down.
Yeah.
2020 was awful. A 60-game
was.
season to an expanded playoff just didn't make sense. And I don't want to see it again during 162 games.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it. I really don't. And I hope that's the only thing that I really didn't agree on is the playoffs. I think they're fine the way they are. We don't need to keep messing with that. I think the only way I could think of, if they're going to realign the playoffs, is when you have your final teams, then you match them up based on their record. Having you saw it with the Dodgers. When you win 101 games and you have to, you still have to play a 1-game play-in. And there's a team like the Braves who had 88 wins in a crappy division, have to, they didn't have to worry about 1 game. And so you could have had, a team with the second best record in baseball eliminated on 1 game.
Do you know who would love the expanded playoffs? Al Steinbrenner. He would love it, because the mathematics always work in the Yankees' favor. He could just do the very, very bare minimum every single offseason. Probably wouldn't even need to spend it all. And he'll know that the Yankees will probably make the playoffs most years than not, because the competition around the American League, isn't great. So the Yankees by accident can make the playoffs like last year. There's times last year where they actively looked like they were trying not to make the playoffs, and they still made it. There's Hal Steinbrenner would love this. If you could add an extra 1 or 2 teams in the American League to guarantee that basically he doesn't need to spend anything, and then they'll still have a product representative enough to win 85 games every year to guarantee you a wild card, then you'll probably sign up for it. I wouldn't be surprised if it was him that was in Manfred's ear going, "Oh, this is a great idea."
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It means I can keep Aaron good for another 15 years.
He made the playoffs. That's all they care about, right?
Exactly. Like, Vince made the playoffs for 15 years.
Oh, God.
If they go seeding, I guess that makes the most sense. If you're going to add another team, just go seeding. But then you can't really do bracket style because you have 6 teams. So how does that work? So you have to add like 3 more teams just to get it to work bracket style. Now the entire league's making the playoffs, so it doesn't work. What we have now,
March Madness, it'll be October Madness.
Yeah, and no one wants to see the 4th best team in the Central making the playoffs or something like that. Like, who wants to see that right now? Like,
No, you're
what
right.
if the Twins
You're right.
And you want to see the elite teams play. Only in basketball is like the only time where the lower seed sometimes has the upset. I'm not going to speak for hockey because I don't know much of anything about it. But in football, how many times has a lower seed or a team like in the NFC East 2 years ago, right? Washington, they put up a fight, but they didn't win. So it's like you're not going to get that feel-good story. It's like, oh, look, the losing teams in the playoffs. Let's see if they make a run. They're probably not. So just make it the way we have now. 5 best teams, and you keep it moving.
Yeah, it's already a long season anyway, man. Why water it down further?
You know, we were talking the other day about how they need to lessen the season. Now this guy wants, you know, now they're proposing to expand it.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make, you know, it's because it's always for them, it's just about the money. That's
Of
all.
course.
You know, how can we put more profit? But you know, I know the playoff, the money that's collected in the playoffs gets distributed amongst everybody, I believe. So that's good. You know, just give the you know, more money in the pool for the players for the teams to invest in their players. It can work. I just don't see it working. I can't picture it in my head that it would work having expanded playoffs.
It won't happen this year. If anything, they'll have to, like, if it gets accepted, it'll be okay,
starting next year. Yeah. Because there's too many logistics to figure out this quick. We'll see. You know, but hopefully that they, you know, the Players Association agrees to this tomorrow, because that's when they're going to be officially, you know, handed the proposal, and hopefully the next time we come back, we're actually talking about this, you know, the free agent pool market opening up, pitches and catches, because this is what we've been waiting since December 1st for this.
We should talk about it anyway. Screw it. Let's just talk about it anyway. Monday.
Amen.
Let's talk about it.
Hope you enjoyed listening. If you agree with us, disagree, leave a comment, like, subscribe, listen to us on sportnam.com/player. Check us out on Northeast Streaming Sports on Roku. And just remember, wear your pinstripes with pride and play hard.